Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm sorry I've been away for so long. It's just been so busy and hectic with everything that's been going on. I've been having some health issues. I've been busy with my EMT class, which, by the way, I just passed my written state exam yesterday, so I'm officially a licensed EMT. Yay. And it's just been so busy, and I had the ongoing battle of whether or not I should continue my YouTube channel because, you know, I already do the Facebook stuff and TikTok and whatever, and I kind of felt like people were thinking, well, if I follow her on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatever, why should I follow her on YouTube? But I kind of decided, you know what, I always decided to keep YouTube as more of a teaching thing, you know, more in-depth topics, and start from scratch with my story, and then Facebook is more like updates and shorter videos and stuff like that. So I decided to go back to it, and here we are. So my last video, I think I left off on TFR, treatment-free remission. And I know briefly I've talked about the different TKIs, the medications, the tyrosine kinase inhibitors. So today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit more in-depthly about the TKIs, what they do, what they are, and my experience with 3 of them. So before I get into that, I just want to let you guys know that when I do give information about this type of stuff, I do use actual resources like different links, and credible links, so that way you know I'm not just randomly spouting information that is not true or that I'm making up, and I will include the links that I used so that way you guys can refer to them as well and make sure that what I'm telling you is legit. So just want to let you guys know. And also I do always put the disclaimer that whatever I share and whatever advice I say is based on my experience, my journey. It is not recommended by me. It is just simply what I'm going through and what I experience. Great. Now that we got all that stuff out of the way, let's get right into it. So, TKIs, what is it? So they're called the tyrosine kinase inhibitors. Before they were created, CML was treated with like aggressive IVIG, interferon, radical bone marrow transplants, regular chemotherapy, like intravenous chemotherapy or through a port or, you know, anything like that. And it was a death sentence because these treatments were so harsh, and obviously they weren't treating, you know, the nitty gritty chromosome that was at the very molecular level. So it was wiping everything out but the actual CML. So patients were dying very quickly. And CML was a death sentence. But when these TKIs were created, it was like, oh my God, you know, now patients are living to the fullest, you know, life expectancy. And it was like groundbreaking. Granted, everybody that I've seen, you know, like doctors I've talked to about this, they've always told me that this is an older person's disease. But being in the CML groups for quite a while now, I'm seeing that younger people are getting diagnosed more and more now. And it's interesting because nobody really knows why. This is not exactly a disease that people think of with genetics or environmental. Like, we don't exactly know what causes it. So it's very interesting to think about why younger people are getting diagnosed more frequently now. I was 19, like I shared in my initial video, and it was kind of out of the blue. It was secondary to something, you know, and that's how we found it. And most people who are found in chronic phase are asymptomatic and they find it secondary to something else. So it's amazing that we've come this far with the treatment and the ability to detect CML through like routine lab work. You know, if we see like increased lymphocytes or decreased neutrophils, or, you know, immature white blood cells like blastocytes that are indicative of CML, then the doctors know now, let's do a bone marrow biopsy. And if we see signs of CML, then that's what it must be. You know, it's amazing that doctors know that now. I'm a nerd, I know, sorry. I was the only person of some of the CML friends that I have, I think I'm the only person that actually enjoyed my bone marrow biopsy. I might be the only person ever who actually enjoyed my bone marrow biopsy because it was just so interesting. I'm okay, YouTube. You don't have to be concerned about my mental state. Facebook literally sometimes would ask me, are you okay? Like, we're worried about you. Yeah, I'm okay. Anyway, so the TKIs, they stand for tyrosine kinase inhibitors. So they're oral targeted chemotherapy. Now wait, before you guys start yelling at me, yes, that is what they are called. On the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, that is what they are referred to. There is this whole debate, are they real chemotherapy drugs, are they not chemotherapy drugs? I'm not here to have that debate. I'm not. I call it oral chemotherapy, because the big clear and yellow bag that it comes in says chemotherapy. If you do not consider it chemotherapy, that is your prerogative. That is fine. I'm not here to yell at you. I'm not here to change your mind. That is your opinion. But at the end of the day, these medications still suck. Whether you want to call it a happy pill, a vitamin, chemotherapy, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, it still sucks. The side effects are awful. So, be it as may, whatever you want to call it, it still sucks. But anyway, they are an oral targeted chemotherapy drug. So, little chemistry lesson. Anything that ends in ASE is a protein. So, tyrosine kinase, that's a protein. So, inhibitor obviously means to stop. So, the tyrosine kinase, that's a protein. In this case, it's the Philadelphia chromosome that occurs when chromosomes 9 and 22 link up from the translocation that causes CML. So basically, in very short and minimal terms, this medication just interrupts that translocation. It basically says, will you stop linking up? You guys are not meant to be with each other. Somebody commented on one of my very first videos and said, chromosomes 9 and 22 link up in a bar, they get drunk and get together and have an unwanted child and it's CML. That's a perfect way of explaining it. I just gave you guys the scientific version, but ultimately, the way I just said and what that person commented is probably going to stick with you more than the scientific route that I just gave you. Just a fact. So, yeah, that's what the TKI does. It's basically a fancy way of saying, will you stop translocating and stop causing this abnormal chromosome, the Philadelphia chromosome, which then leads to the creation of the cancerous cells, the blastocytes. And depending on what phase you're in, that's what determines how many blastocytes are in your bone marrow or your bloodstream. And that's what basically bases you if you're in chronic phase, accelerated, or blast phase, or blast crisis. I was found in chronic phase, so luckily I did not have many blast cells in my bone marrow, and I did not have any really in my bloodstream. I was very lucky. So I'm going to explain to you the different medications now. So currently there are 3 different generations. So Gleevec was the first generation ever created. The actual name for it is imatinib. All these medications are very interesting to pronounce, and hopefully I don't like choke on it when I say it. But it's imatinib and Gleevec. For the most part, they all end in ib or nib, which is funny. I don't know why I find it funny, but yeah. So Gleevec, imatinib, that was the first one. I don't remember exactly what decade it came out in, but I do actually know someone who was one of the first patients to be on it. Like I've mentioned before, CML used to be aggressively treated, you know, by like the IVIG, the immunotherapy, chemotherapy, radical bone marrow transplants. So it used to be a death sentence, and this person that I know was treated initially with immunotherapy. And amazingly, they're doing extremely well, and they're not even on medication right now, and they're maintaining an undetectable status, and that's just like mind-blowing to me. So that's Gleevec. It's the only one in the first generation. The second generation has 3 medications. So it's Sprycel or Dasatinib, Bocilib or Bosutinib, and what's it called? It's the tip of my Tasigna or Nilotinib. And then the third generation is Iglusig or Ponatinib. So those are the generations. And now the other one that just got approved not too long ago, within the past couple of years, is Asciminib, and that's Scemblix. Boy, the first time that I had to learn how to pronounce that was an absolute train wreck. The nurse was like, okay, we're gonna start your Asciminib. I was like, what? Asciminib. Cinnamon? Asciminib. Hamurma? I was like, what? Asciminib. What's the brand name? Scemblix. Okay, just say that. Scemblix, just say that. So now when I go to like a doctor that's new for me, they're like, what medication are you on? And I say Scemblix, and they're like, what's the, you know, generic or whatever. Can I just give you the regular name? Sorry, we need the generic. It kind of sounds like you're gonna sneeze, and then cinnamon mix. Asciminib. I'm better at saying it now, Asciminib. But either way, I have a list of my meds on my phone, so whenever I go to the doctor, or God forbid I have to go to the ER, I literally just pull it up and I'm like, here. Which, tip for iPhone users, if you like really need to, which I recommend, put all your medications, whatever, in the health app under your contact card, and then make it available on your lock screen, so that way, God forbid you have to go in the ambulance or something, you can access it from your emergency screen. All you have to do is hit emergency, show medical ID, and everything will come up. And you can even make it accessible, like when you call 911, dispatch can actually see it. It's actually really cool. I mean, it's sad that it's cool because, you know, health issues, but it is pretty cool. So, anyway, when Scemblix was new, and Ponatinib was pretty new, they were originally approved for people who had the T135 mutation, and I'm gonna double check that before I say I'm absolutely sure. But, I'm going to double check that for you. But it was originally approved for those people, and for people who had previously taken 2 TKIs and failed or became intolerable or just stopped responding in general. And I apologize, it was the T315, I think that's an I. T315I mutation. So that's originally what it was approved for, but now people are getting approved for Scemblix more and more. A lot because of the side effects of the other TKIs, complications, comorbidities, stuff like that. I got approved because I'll get into that in a minute. I'll just explain what Scemblix is first, and then I'll give you my sad history on the medications. But basically, so Scemblix is different. So at first, I didn't think that it was a TKI. I thought it was its own separate entity, but it actually is a TKI. It's not really considered a 4th generation medication yet. It's just kind of in its own category, and the reason of that being is that it acts on a completely different angle of the TKI. So when Dr. Morrow explained it to me, he said it's a quieter medication. I beg to differ, but according to an actual website dedicated to Scemblix, like this is literally called us.scemblix.com, it says, Scemblix is the first and only TKI that is thought to bind to a different site within the abnormal protein that causes Philadelphia chromosome plus CML in chronic phase. Your doctor may refer to this as the myristoyal pocket. So, again, basically in simple terms, that just means that it's acting on a different pocket or a corner in the Philadelphia chromosome. Now, my history with trying the different TKIs is I started on Sprycel. And I think I talked a little bit about this when I discussed TFR with you guys. I started on Sprycel when I was first diagnosed. My initial hemonc wanted me to start Gleevec, but he was not entirely comfortable with treating pediatric CML, so he referred me out to Sloan. However, that hemonc is still in my life today because of my lupus anticoagulant syndrome, which I think my next YouTube video is going to be on that. Plus, it's almost been a whole year since I had my pulmonary embolism last year. It's like scary. But anyway, so I got referred to Sloan and I met Dr. Richard O'Reilly, who was like 83 at this point, 84. And he had his walker. He came in, he sat down on it because it had like the little chair. And he was like, all right, let's talk. And I'm like, you're going to be my oncologist? And then this like way younger, good looking guy came in. And he goes, no, I am. And I'm like, he's like 80, you're like 30, you know, like, eh? But anyway, they wanted to start me on Sprycel. My numbers weren't crazy high, but they weren't low either. It was a good debate whether or not we should do Sprycel or Gleevec, but we ended up doing Sprycel, and I had pretty much an immediate response. I was undetected within, if I want to be accurate, probably like 4 or 5 months. It was definitely under a year, probably under half a year. And I started having really bad joint pain, and I was attempting TFR at about 2 years, and probably 2 years and a little under half, so a little under 2.5 years. And we ended up having to go back onto the TKI, and because of the joint pain I was having, we chose Bosilif. Bad idea. And it's interesting because a lot of people can tolerate Bosilif, but they can't tolerate Sprycel. I was the opposite. Bosilif was so awful for me. The nausea was awful, the fluid retention in my feet, my hands. I gained like well over 40 pounds, which I finally just lost these past 6 months, and like everything was horrible. I had very minimal pericardial effusion, which means I had fluid around the lining of my heart, and it was just awful. Like, it wasn't even my body anymore. Like, I just could not function. Like, I was so heavy and I was so bloated all the time, and it just wasn't me. So I don't know how, but I lasted 6 months on that awful drug. And then we went back to Sprycel, and I lasted another 2.5 years on Sprycel. And the pain got so bad to the point that I just couldn't deal with it anymore. My stomach was awful. My hair was falling out. I had also been on another drug called Dicipramine. It's an antidepressant, and it was causing my hair to fall out as well. But then the Sprycel kind of, you know, had a synergistic effect, so it was just not good. But I switched teams from my pediatric oncology at Sloan to Dr. Morrow's team at Sloan, and he's wonderful. He's literally like a world-renowned specialist as well in CML, and Semlix is literally his drug. Like, he developed it, and he gave me 3 options when I first met him. We could try Sprycel at a lower dose of 50 milligrams, because I literally was on 100 milligrams for altogether about 4.5 years. And I even have gotten questions in my group, like, how did you stay on such a high dose for so long? I didn't realize that it was a high dose for a long time. You know, I guess my pediatric team didn't really know, because they weren't really familiar with pediatric CML. They were leukemia and lymphoma, but they weren't really CML. They just took on my case because I was pediatric leukemia. So they probably figured, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And honestly, I did too. We tried TFR, it didn't work, so we just automatically stuck me back on what was working. And I don't blame them. You know, I didn't know any better, they didn't know any better. So we stuck with what worked. So that was one option. The other option was to try TFR when I hit 2 years of being in DMR again, or deep molecular remission, which I would have in July, and I did receive an undetectable response again. But I said no to TFR because I wasn't really ready to risk it again quite yet. And the other option was to do Scemblix. So I chose Scemblix. He made it sound so appealing. He was like, oh, you know, it's a quieter drug, you're not gonna have any pain. I have pain. So much pain. Every day. But luckily, you know, we've dropped the dose twice. I originally started at 80 milligrams, and it was like literally unbearable. I'm just so fortunate that pain is the only side effect that I have on this drug. I couldn't tolerate it at 80, so we dropped to 40. No change. We dropped to 20. Not much of a change, so I went to see a pain doctor at Sloan. I really was not thrilled. She was not great at all. She didn't even, like, get back in touch with me. So I'm seeing another pain doctor now. We're on naltrexone, and I still have to contact PT and OT. I keep forgetting. But ultimately, I don't want to be on Scemblix anymore. I don't even want to do TFR, but at this point, I don't want to be on a TKI right now. I have other issues to deal with right now. I had an abnormal GYN visit last month, and I'm having a biopsy tomorrow. So right now, I'm just feeling kind of done, to be honest. I just want to get this over with and not be on medication, but, you know, I'm trying not to let that cloud my judgment. But, yeah. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I hope this helped. I've talked about this in the past in my videos, but there's a huge debate about which one's better. Oral chemo or regular chemo. You know, it sucks. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, it's totally different, or, you know, it's the same. Listen, they're both awful. If we had a choice, we wouldn't be taking it. There's no need to compare. You know what I mean? Everybody's different. You know, my broken arm hurts worse than your broken finger, or vice versa. Everybody has a different journey, but we all have the same common goal: to live a long, healthy life. Instead of comparing, you know, let's be empathetic towards each other, right? You know, so what if your chemo lasts longer? So what if I'm on mine for life? Instead of comparing, why don't we just help each other through the journey, right? That's the common goal at the end of the day, to make it through, right? That's what matters the most. So that's what I'm going to keep doing, and I hope you guys do the same. I appreciate you watching. Do what you think you can't do. Do the unimaginable. I'm celebrating my life, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.